This is Fresh Air. I'm Terry Gross. My guest, Chuck D, is the leader of the rap group Public Enemy. It's been in the vanguard of rap, both for its multi-layered mixes of music and noise, and for its politically charged lyrics. One of their best-known songs, Fight the Power, was used in Spike Lee's movie Do the Right Thing. Chuck D has called rap music the Black CNN, but as music critic John Perellos has written, Public Enemy also has a knack for shooting itself in the foot. He was referring to the controversy surrounding anti-Semitic comments from one of the group's members. Public Enemy has had 3 multi-platinum albums and 3 gold LPs. This year, Chuck D became a commentator for the national Fox News channel. Now he has a new book called Fight the Power, Rap, Race, and Reality. Spike Lee wrote the introduction. This is Public Enemy's Power to the People.
And you thought the beat slowed down, come on! Turn me loose! Just turn it up! Power to the people, y'all! Hey! Turn me loose, turn it up, get on up, get into it, get involved, feel the bass as the cut evolves. Hey! To the brothers with the 808, like I said before, PE got a brand new funk. Turn it up, boom the trump, yeah. Internationally known on the microphone, making sure the brothers will never leave you alone. To my sisters, yes, we missed ya. Let's get it together, make a nation. You can bet on it, don't sleep in it, cause the troops go deep in it.
Chuck D, welcome to Fresh Air.
Hello, how you doing?
Okay, how are you?
I'm all right.
In your new book, you point out that most rap artists were born after 1967, whereas everyone in your group was born between 1958 and 61. How do you think that makes your point of view different in your lyrics?
I just think I was able to visualize the whole decade of the 60s, and I definitely was a recipient of all the surrounding events. So when 1986 came around, and it was the 10th year, I guess, of rap music, sort of, or the 7th year of recording, the topics were in me, and I didn't have to really go into trying to discover them in depth as much as, some of the younger guys. So I went into something that that was relative to myself.
Public Enemy is also known for its layered sound mixes. How did that become a part of the group?
The processes of trying to invent something that was different, trying to be as diverse as possible, and coming from a background of many different musical styles, which we believe that hip-hop is a blend and a hybrid of all kinds of musics. And, when I was growing up, I was more into sports. So when I did listen to music and I listened to radio, I listened to pretty much AM pop radio. So you heard everything from the Rolling Stones to Lovin' Spoonful, Chicago, the Spinners, Elton John, things like that. So that combination allowed us to come up with weird layering blends.
Tell me about creating the image of Public Enemy, how you dressed, what you did on stage, what the look was on stage.
Well, the look was on stage was like kind of represent some of the look on the streets, but what the S1Ws had done is, take a combination of Fruit of Islam and Black Panther Party look with the berets and the black suits, and actually they had dressed that way to be, they were security for our mobile gigs that we used to have out on Long Island. So when they actually, when we actually put this group together, myself and Hank Shockley thought that they would be a good component to the group to add a look, and that they did. Flavor and myself wore regular street gear. We started out wearing these little clocks because that was the style of high school kids at the time. And then Flavor just kept, wearing his clock as the clocks got bigger. I took my clock off after the first year. But, the clock signified what time it was, which meant that, you had to know what was happening.
So tell me more about the image of having bodyguards on stage.
Well, they wasn't really bodyguards. Security to the first world signified, had a double meaning. It was like they would call themselves security to the first world because, we felt that we as black people were first world people. And security, spoke up for the fact that our culture, our language, our whole background and known black background was taken away from us, and the security of the first world, or a symbol to present the fact that we would never allow it to, happen again. And there was also a symbol because in the beginning, the S1Ws held Uzis, and the Uzi signified, you know, the whole aspect of black culture was stolen with the threat of the gun, used by the Western Hemisphere and the European civilization. And when they used the gun to abduct us from a land that we pretty much, were peaceful and civil at, then we used it as a symbol, as the S1Ws being the security of the first world, not allowing this to happen again in symbol.
Were they real Uzis or fake Uzis?
Next question.
Uh-oh. Sorry, you can't answer that? Why,
Why what?
why can't you answer that?
Because I choose not to.
All right. That's a kind of elaborate metaphor that you're using for the Uzis, but I think the way they've really been seen is these guys are really tough. They've got guns. They're really macho.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the way you'd see it if you were in the audience, as opposed to an elaborate metaphor
Well,
about
I
how the
think
culture
number
was
one.
stolen.
I think number one is that people were shocked at that time. They had never seen black organization like this in that particular type of way.
Mm-hmm.
Black men in uniforms. They don't look like they're in the Army or the U.S. Navy or anything. They just look like they're in it for themselves.
So now, Uzis make an appearance in a lot of groups' rap lyrics, in bragging about how tough they are and how...
My second record was called "My Uzi Weighs a Ton."
Right, and what was that about, though?
It was a metaphor to use the way I rattled off words from my tongue.
Right. Yeah. But yeah.
The way I rattled off words, like da 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 da, like at that particular time, an Uzi, which was a very popular, I guess, Israeli, created weapon, was actually a word that was going around.
Right, but the rap that you just mentioned, "My Uzi Weighs a Ton," wasn't really about shooting up the neighborhood or facing off with the police or anything. Whereas a lot of rap lyrics about Uzis are, and I'm wondering what you thought of those lyrics.
I believe that things that happen in the community bring up a topic and a discussion, and every story and word should be said. Because if you don't allow it to happen, it's censorship. But I believe the projection of the projections of balance and character are not as fair as they should be. So therefore, there's a lopsided projection of a negative point of view coming from a black community, and I don't think everything is negative.
My guest is Chuck D of the rap group Public Enemy. He has a new book called Fight the Power. We'll talk more after a break. This is Fresh Air. Back with Chuck D of the rap group Public Enemy. Let me play one of the better known, one of the most popular raps from Public Enemy, and this is "Don't Believe the Hype." Just before we hear it, what are some of the things that you were reacting against in this particular track?
Just telling people don't fall victim to being programmed. Not saying don't believe anything, but challenge information. I mean, even today, we're in just as much of a misinformation age as we are in the information age. So you have to be able to challenge the so-called fact with some situations or some background and research before you actually believe it. In this country right here in the United States, people here still a headline soaking in audience, so to speak. And instead of the headline, get into the story.
Let's hear Don't Believe the Hype. This is Public Enemy. My guest is Chuck D, the lead vocalist of the group.
Don't, 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 don't. Now here's what I want you all to do for me. Bang! Caught you looking for the same thing. It's a new thing. Check out this I bring. Uh-oh, the roll below the level, cause I'm living low next to the base. Come on! Turn up the radio. They're claiming I'm a criminal. But now I wonder how. Some people never know. The enemy could be the Frank Guardian. I'm not a hooligan. I rock the party and clear all the madness. I'm not a racist. Preach to teach the all. Cause some they never had this. Number one, never wanna run about the gun. I wasn't licensed to have one. The minute they see me, fear me. I'm the epitome, a public enemy. Used, abused without clues. I refuse to blow a fuse. They even had it on the news. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Yes.
My guest is Chuck D of Public Enemy, and he's written a new book called Fight the Power, Rap, Race, and Reality. Let's get to one of the, probably the most controversial part of Public Enemy's career to date.
Depending on who you're talking about.
Right, okay. Right, okay. Well, this is, I'm referring to the time when Professor Griff, the Minister of Information with the group, said in an interview with David Mills of the Washington Times, things like the Jews are wicked and we can prove this. He said that the Jews are responsible for the vast majority of wickedness that goes on across the globe. You quote him as saying in your book that, is it a coincidence that the Jews run the jewelry business and it's named jewelry? Mm-hmm. And he talked about the role of jewels in the slave trade. So I know you see Public Enemy as being about educating its listeners. What message did you think that gave?
I think it was informative in a certain way, but I just think a lot of things that he was saying were, presented wrong. And of course, if, when you make statements like wicked around the world and you make a blanket statement, that just blocks out any kind of information that you might have. And that was the discussion then and there.
You said it was informative in a certain way. I don't really know what that means.
Informative in a certain way. If you say that people, when Griff was talking about, he was just talking about certain people that had a firm grip on let's say the background or the home of our of our people. I mean, European nations have a firm grip on the control of Africans even to this day. The United States has a firm grip on a lot of people around the world to this day. But you got to be clear and precise about naming individuals and not making blanket statements about their affiliations with religions. So what I mean, it was sort of informative because when you look at who owns the diamond mines, why the hell are they there anyway? And what are their names? And why are they still mining diamonds today when black people have been there since the beginning of time? And all you had to do is ask a lot of questions. And then when people start ducking the questions and then running like roaches, then you're pretty much on the up and up instead of behind the ball.
So your point, I think, is that...
I don't think there's a black guy running diamond mines.
So your point is that Jewish people run the diamond mines in South Africa. Jews were responsible for a lot of the slave trade, but let's be specific about it. That's your point?
Let's be real specific about it. Let's name names. Let's name addresses and heirs and people like that and benefactors. I think using Jewish people as a phrase to me was not a great move, not a good move at all, because a person that follows religion follows it to the T. And those people might have said, okay, I'm a Jew, but to me, Judaism is a religion. And the people that do wickedly deeds, they have no religion at all except for the religion of the devil. So they couldn't even call themselves Jews as much as they think they were born into it. I just don't follow that principle or belief. I can't buy that. I'm sorry. I have to be convinced, and I have yet to be convinced about that.
To be convinced about what?
About a person's religion, them being born into it. I don't believe that.
So you mean just if you're born into Judaism doesn't necessarily make you a Jew?
No.
So you can distance yourself from it if you want to? Is that what you're saying?
It's a philosophy. For example, being born black has something to do with skin tone. Really, it's a skin tone. Through white world supremacy, the whole idea of race and color separation came from that. It didn't come from black people. If you look around the world is made up of a whole bunch of different philosophies, beliefs, and colors. This black white thing is ridiculous, but it's made up by the whole fact of a Eurocentric white world supremacist belief of separating the races. So, when a person is born black, the fact that it has nothing to do with the skin tone is a ridiculous concept that has been placed upon us as people, human beings.
Let me ask you, can you understand why people were uncomfortable with your criticism of Minister Griff? I mean, the elaborate explanation that you just gave is still a little confusing.
Well, there's a lot of things I'm uncomfortable about in America. There's a lot of things I'm uncomfortable about in the background. So people have to take that in consideration, weigh and judge it, sit down and debate, and come up with their clear, concise reasons why everything in the past, in the history, was cool or uncool, depending on them.
I guess
I told people Griff was wrong, but you know what? Let's talk now. If that brought up the situation, let's talk. And let's talk about, for example, when I talk about reparations in this country, I want to talk about people that have benefited off the slave trade that still have money today, whether they're in Europe or whether they're in the United States. This is still an unclaimed and untalked about issue. Reparations in this country right now is still a passed over issue. It's cool for Clinton to apologize, but the 40 acres and the mule, that's what people are waiting for in a certain sense of the word, in terms. And not only for the destruction of black Americans, but the destruction of black people within the continent of Africa. I think European nations owe money or whatever form to rebuild it and find it the way they, and rebuild it in the way that they found it.
Well, just to sum up here, Griff said that Jews are responsible for the majority of wickedness in the world.
Yeah, he's wrong.
Okay, but that's what you were saying was, well, he should have named names. He should have been more specific.
You should name names and be specific and don't make blanket statements.
You don't sound very uncomfortable with the concept, though.
Say what?
It doesn't sound like it's a kind of tepid.
I don't care what you think it sounds like. I don't care about that. I'm telling you.
No, what do you mean you don't care?
I don't care what you think.
Oh, you don't care what I think? Okay.
No, I don't care what you think. I'm telling you straight out, right? I don't care what you feel about what I'm talking about. I'm telling you straight out, he was wrong. You don't make blanket statements about a people when most people are innocent, all right? You name names, you name individuals. You don't name their religious affiliation. That's ridiculous. You name individuals and you name that clique, so to speak. That's what you do. And I went over that. It's almost like been there, done that. I went through it. I named it in the book. I went through the whole thing in my book. And matter of fact, you see some names that are named. So let's move on.
I'm wondering if the murders of Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur had a big personal effect on you, and also if they've had an effect on performing and how you see other people.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's just a ridiculous concept that we had two of the guys at the top, Mr. 1 and Mr. 1A, and they were both murdered, shot. They haven't found the killers. It's just uncanny. It's just unbelievable, and that's no pun intended, because that was one of Biggie's songs. And right now, I'm just confused just by the aspect of that happening. And before they even were shot, a lot of people were posturing, reflecting the violence in the hood and trying to envelop that philosophy within their act, which kind of like scared off the rest of the female audience in rap music, at least until Puffy Combs actually has brought it back. So Puffy Combs has brought back the female audience, which is a good thing. But before then, the live shows disappeared with the disappearing of the female audience as they flocked towards R&B.
Do you think that part of the reason why women weren't showing up for rap concerts is the lack of respect they were given in rap music?
No, I think, you had a whole bunch of young crooners come by, well, in the form of Boys to Men and Jodeci, and I don't care how much a rapper is rapping. Nothing gets a female's attention more than somebody that's on his knees with a rose in his mouth, singing love to them.
Well, it is interesting that rap music has had so little in the way of love ballads. I mean, because usually, like, especially in like teenage music, there's just such a long history of the romantic ballad,
Right.
along with the more,
People fall in love.
aggressive. Yeah, right.
People fall in love every year. You know. Um,
Would you
what?
ever miss that side of performing?
What? What's that?
The romantic side. Did you ever
Did I
wish
have
that
a miss?
that Chuck D had like a kind of romantic ballad side?
No, I can't sing a lick. I can't play instruments. I yell and I scream. So, this would be like comparable to Led Zeppelin. And it's just like with I guess white males. Led Zeppelin or metal rock or straight up rock and roll becomes very energetic and you move around and it becomes athletic.
Even Led Zeppelin would have something like "Stairway to Heaven."
Yeah, and I've had some things that brought the tempo down every once in a while, but no, I can't. If I believe if you cannot sing, don't even go into that zone. You have people who are natural singers. You have people that have the ability to sing, and that's their chunk of entertainment, and I admire them for that. I mean, I'm a big fan of Motown in the '60s, so if I want to hear me something slow jam, I'll turn on something by Otis Redding.
Chuck D will be back in the second half of the show. His new book is Fight the Power. I'm Terry Gross, and this is Fresh Air.
So get up and get down. 911 is joking your town. Get up and get down. Late 911, where's the late crowd? Get up and get down. 911 is joking your town. Get up and get down. Late 911, where's the late crowd? A flavor face says
This is Fresh Air. I'm Terry Gross, back with Chuck D, founder of the rap group Public Enemy. He's also a commentator for the Fox News Channel, and now he has a new book called Fight the Power. One of your most famous records was used for the soundtrack of Do the Right Thing, and that's Fight the Power.
Mm-hmm.
Fight the powers that be. What power? Which
power-
power do you want people
the
to fight?
powers, the powers in the black community is all those that control the black community from the outside going in. The powers of a lot of different things: economics, education, enforcement. The powers that keep the black community remaining in the plantation state that it remains in. So, with that in mind, you want to fight the powers that get that foot off your neck, and that's just your human right to get a foot off your neck.
What influence do you hope your lyrics have had on your listeners?
To be able to look at information clearly, disseminate it, and then use it for their own good.
One last question. What have you been listening to now, musically?
Me?
Yeah.
I bought this Rhino box set of 100 records from the 60s.
The soul music box?
Beg, scream, shout.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Bought that. Of course, Hendrix stays in my collection.
Uh-huh.
The first Funkadelic album, Free Your Mind. That's Busta Rhymes. OC. OC has the latest album. There's a good young rapper that I like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading Sweet Soul Music.
Peter Guralnick's book?
Yeah, Peter Guralnick's book. I just bought Gladys Knight's book yesterday.
Uh-huh.
The High Record Story, which is three sets of CDs on everything out of High Records in Memphis. That's heavily and also making the next record. So hearing also Traffic's first couple albums, the group Traffic, Stevie Winwood and all them.
And any samples from that likely to show up on your next record?
Nah, I can't say anything about that, and definitely not. I don't think I'm going to use a Traffic sample and get my tail sued. That ain't happening.
Well, yeah, actually, you don't usually credit the people that you sample, right?
I don't sample.
Yeah, in the book you actually mentioned that you keep the samples unnamed so you don't have to, so you won't get sued and don't have to pay royalties.
Well, that's back in the day. Well, basically, what we do is we desecrate the sample.
Uh-huh.
That's almost like taking a sound and then splitting it up into three elements. And we took an element. What we're dealing. What we dealt with is the elements of sound as opposed to the sample composition, and that's two different things. I'm not going
Right.
to pay anybody for a sound,
Ha- ha-
especially as much as my sounds have been taken.
Has that been tested in court yet, by the way? Whether if you totally break up a riff, whether that would be...
You think I'm going to trust the courts?
Well, I didn't ask that. I just I didn't ask if you would.
I don't give a damn if it is in the
But
court
just
or not,
uh-huh.
because my whole thing is that if somebody sues me, and I'm into a thing of look, if you sue me, I'm suing you back, and you're not going to find a case where you're going to win.
But the thing is, that what you're by saying that you're depriving artists who made the original record of more royalties. And
Not
of
when
just
you-
like the credit for
not
their
when
music.
you use not when you use sound elements. No, you should only pay if you take the composition of song. The composition of song is what you have to pay for. The composition of lyric, composition of song and arrangement. But an element of sound, no. I mean, if you invent a machine like a lawnmower, and I take that lawnmower sound and I arrange it in my own composition, I'm the songwriter. I've took an element of sound. Sound belongs to everything on the planet. You can take a bird's chirp and make a song out of it. That's what you own. You own the song. You don't own the sound.
But we're out of time. Chuck D, I want to thank you very much for talking with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Terry.
Chuck D is the founder of Public Enemy. His new book is Fight the Power.